Good morning. So this first ceramic assignment, 7th and 8th graders, is a small figure inside a tray. And the tray is made with what's called a slab and a coil. And the figure is made separately and can even be fired and glazed separately, attached later during the second and final firing. So we don't have to do everything at once, nor do we have to glaze everything at once. I'm going to go ahead and show you how to do the tray portion with the coil to form its lip, all right? So here we go. The clay is usually a little damper than it needs to be, but you handling it will warm the clay and drive off extra moisture. And as the moisture leaves the clay body, the clay will stiffen up. It's important that the clay not dry out too much because then it loses its ability to shape. Its ability to shape is referred to as the clay's plasticity. And we want our clay to be not too wet and not too dry, but just right. So with this small piece in my hand, I'm going to use the stronger portions of my palms to form a ball. It's a basic form in clay. And I'm going to do that with my eyes closed. And you should also try to handle the clay with your eyes closed, because your sense of touch is so vitally important when it comes to working with clay. So my eyes are closed and I can feel the correctness of that in my hands. It's not that you don't need your eyes, you do. But you also need your other senses. I can tell through touch that the temperature is warming up. I can tell through touch that the clay is drying out. And I can tell through touch that the shape that I'm holding, the one I just made, is a sphere, okay? Now, what I'm going to do with this is create a tile. Again, using the flat part of my palm, working against a sheet of manila paper. The manila paper will soak up extra moisture from the clay also. I'm gently going to flatten. I'll turn it and flatten some more. None of your movements need to be too forceful all at once. You can apply the force little by little. And again, with my eyes closed, I can tell how thick the clay is in each and every part. If you're making a slab, usually the thickness is even throughout. A slab is like a tile, but not a thin tile, one that's got some thickness to it, like the thickness of my pinky, okay? And as I turn this over, you'll see a little bit of the moisture darkening the paper as it comes out of the clay. I can pound the clay very gently, and that is also another way to get this to shape. Of course, I started with a ball, and what I'm getting is a flat circular tile or slab. I could, if I wanted to, roll this and flatten the edges if I desired flatter edges. Of course, this could be shaped in other ways too, and not just kept as a tile. In art, this slab or tile is an important part of ceramic hand building. Now, what I'm going to do now is make a long, skinny coil to wrap around this outer edge. So I'll move this out of the way for right now. Take off more clay, and again, I'm going to shape it into a ball. A ball is always a good starting point. And from that ball, I'm going to elongate the clay. And again, you can guess, without seeing, I'm telling you that I can feel, my eyes are closed, the thickness and the length of this coil as it forms. A coil is like a very skinny cylinder. And again, we don't want anything too thin. As I do this, as I roll it gently, you notice that I'm not using my fingers. I'm using, again, these stronger portions of my palm. So much of the work is done right down here where the ball of the hand, this part right here, meets the rest of the palm. So I'm using pressure right along here. Now this coil will gradually get longer and longer. And as I roll it on the paper, the coil will lose more and more moisture. So the important thing is that I'm always aware of how much moisture is in the clay so that I can sense whether or not it's gotten too dry. Is there a way to add moisture back into the clay? There is, but we don't put moisture on the clay ever, not directly, unless we're attaching pieces. Here's what you can do. Dip your fingers in the water, rub a few drops of water on your palms to dampen your palms, and then continue to work the clay. Typically, you don't want to put water on the clay. It weakens the clay. It makes it very difficult to handle, and I don't think you're going to be happy with the result. You'll see that when I do moisten my hands darken a bit because moisture has darkened the dusty clay surface of my hands, and I just continue on. But other than that, we don't normally put water back onto our clay. We can recycle our clay if we need to, but we don't normally put water on the clay. Now you see there's a little irregularity there coming off the paper. I've opened my eyes, I can see that, and a little irregularity there. But those are not important things. We can gradually work those out. I can use both my hands if I want to, and I don't even have to make this coil all at once. I could make it in parts. I want to get it a little thinner. I can see it's rolling pretty easily. I can determine if some portions of it are a little too thick. You see how I go along adding pressure to those areas that might be getting a little too thick and thin them down a little bit. So this would be a coil. This is a good test of your ability to create basic forms in clay. We did balls, we did a slab, and now we're doing a coil. Now this is still quite thick, and it could be that I'm going to have to move things out of the way. I see my paper's leaving a little bit of a mark on the clay. I might use the back of my paper now, which is drier. There we go. That surface is a little drier. And finish up my coil. Okay. It's a little lumpy, it's a little bumpy. We'll get those worked out in a bit. Okay, here we go. We're going to add this coil and wrap it around this. And it looks like it's going to be long enough. Let's test it. Oh my goodness, more than long enough. So we don't even need it that long. We might use it. Let me pinch off and put my clay back together so it doesn't dry out. We may only need this much. So what I'm going to do is attach the coil to the slab, and we do that with slip and score. Slip and score uses a modeling tool like this, or like this, or like this. We have these modeling tools made from plastic, not expensive but very useful. When you slip and score, slipping is creating liquid clay. So I might take a little drop of water, here's where I'm putting the water directly on the clay, and creating liquid clay, dissolving that top surface of clay, making it very slippery. That's slip. And you have to do the same thing to both surfaces that you're attaching together. So I'm going to do the same thing here. Slip and score. Here's the slipping portion, smoothing things out, but just in a limited area, not everywhere, just where the pieces are going to attach. And now I'm going to score. To score, I'm going to use this sharper edge, this thinner edge of the modeling tool. I can dip it into the water and actually carry water from the cup over here to the clay, and that way I wouldn't even have to use my fingers, would I? So that would be a shortcut, wouldn't it? So here I am making many, 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 many cuts. And you have to be patient. You can't make just 3 or 4. You have to make multiple cuts. This increases surface area and helps the pieces join together. Notice all the cuts. I could even go back over my cuts in a different direction. That will not harm a thing, and in fact might be helpful in increasing surface area. Notice how I continue to bring little amounts of water over from the cup as I slip and score, okay? There we go. That's slipping and scoring all in one step. The slip's there, the score marks are there, the score marks are the little cuts, and now I've got to do it over here. You see what I mean by patient. You just have to be careful to do it slowly and surely. When I'm done with this, I will stop this video and make a second video to accompany it, but then we're just dealing with the figure itself. the little puppy dog, the little kitty cat, the little turtle, whatever you wish to do. Nothing sloppy, always careful. Okay? Here we go. Slip and score both surfaces. The two surfaces are going to come together now. Here we go. Make sure I'm going to carefully take the ring, turn it upside down. Slipped and scored surfaces match here. Now I'm going to carefully weld with my nail the ring to its base. It's a little rough. I'm using my thumbnail right now. I can use my finger to smooth. I can gently lift the slab. I could even, if I have a modeling tool that has a rounded end to it, use that in place of my finger to do my welding. Welding just means a continuing joining where the surfaces appear to be one. It's rough right now. It will smooth out later. Slip and score, slip and score, slip and score. And the inside edge is pretty good. Gonna smooth it a wee bit. This took longer than you expected, huh? Taking longer than I expected, but nevertheless, very important basic skills. Slabs, coils, slipping and scoring, welding. Now, when this dries a little bit more, I can continue to smooth and refine the surface. So not all of the smoothing and refinement has to happen right now. If it's a little bit rough right now, that is a-okay. It might actually be beneficial for you to come back and do your final touch-ups on this when it's a little drier and somewhat easier to handle. Here's this outside edge. I'm going to go ahead. It's a little easier to get to with my modeling tool. Notice how, again, I'm going to these outside seams with the modeling tool, gently dragging so the clay from the coil and the clay from the slab weld together, meld together, and of course I will do some smoothing on that here in just a little bit as well. Now, it may be that you're not going to finish your clay piece all in one day. It may be that you'll have to keep it in an airtight box for 24 or 48 hours until you're able to get back to it, and we'll do that in a moment. Let me go ahead and do a little smoothing here. I think because the clay is pretty damp, remember I just added water to it, I won't do any finishing touches on the tray right now. I think I'll wait until it gets a little bit stiffer, loses a little bit more moisture, and I can handle it without damaging it. But this is my tray. If I wanted to put it away, let's say I'm in A1 and my folder is red. I find a box with a red piece of tape on it. I can put it in the box, and there's plenty of room in the box for somebody else's work as well. I'm going to go ahead and put the top on the box to keep it from drying out. And then this box with the red tape can be stored on the front table with other boxes that also have red tape. Anything that's not finished needs to be stored in this fashion, okay? If it is finished, we put it in a different location. But unfinished items go in a box with a tape color that matches your folder color. Now, you try.